this worked. No, that one doesn't want to work. Finishing some setup here, and then we are going to be talking about estate planning, protecting your family in the new year, how to pick the best people to be in charge of everything, to manage your finances if you're not able to make healthcare decisions for you if you're not able to. And a lot of times it's just like, how do we even make those decisions, right? So we will get going here in a minute. My goals for this year, while we're all waiting, and I'd love it if you typed in the comments, what are some of your goals for this year? Mine, figure out how to do lives better. And be all set up and ready to go. I mean, maybe that's not how it works, but I would like to get better at that. All right, let's see. Oh, I know why that wasn't working. Okay, let's... Coffee. I know what I did wrong. We're getting there. Hello, everyone. I want to wish you a very happy new year. So far, it's early here. My husband and I slept in a little bit, and just kind of laid in bed, watching TV and catching up on news, I suppose, for the beginning of the year. Let's see. All right, one more thing to set up. We're getting there, guys, I promise. There we go. Love that. All right. All right. Good morning. Almost still for those of us here in Arizona, West Coast. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon for everybody else. You Central and Eastern folks. I'm glad you're tuning in with me. I'm Becky Easton. I'm an estate planning attorney, licensed in Arizona and Colorado. And today I wanted to, first of all, come on and again wish you a very, very happy New Year. I hope you and your families are safe and well and healthy, and that you are excited for a new year too. I'm really looking forward to this year. I came off of it feels like a rough several years, but last year in particular was a lot. I learned a lot last year. I'd love to hear what you guys felt. Love to see it in the comments how this last year has treated you and what you're looking forward to. It's one thing to kind of be, dwelling on the past and how hard it is and, the rough time that you had to go through, but how are we going to change that? What you get to make that choice every single day to do different, experience the world in a different way, change your outlook. So what are you excited for? I'd love to hear it. Let's see. Today we're talking a little bit about estate planning, the more loving things that you can do for your family. We don't always think about it that way, but it is, because if you've ever had to deal with a probate situation, a loved one has passed in your family or friends group, and they haven't had any planning. You've heard those stories of kind of heartache and trouble and just things not working out because there was no plan. A lot of times too, if you instead, my family as an example, sometimes there is planning and it still doesn't quite work. At least not as intended. And that, I think, is one of the main things I want to help impress upon everybody as you're listening, is that sometimes, even when you plan, if you just set it up on the shelf and forget about it, this isn't set it and forget it. Your life is something that changes. Your family dynamics change over time, and looking at your planning periodically can make a world of difference in how your plan actually works or not. My family, for example, my grandma, she had a trust, and we knew about it. She talked about its existence, and so we were like, oh, cool, grandma's done her planning, it's all set. It's it was in our family. My mom's an only child, right? And so for the most part, my grandma was going to die, everything was going to go to her, and you think of that as something very simple and easy to accomplish. It was fairly straightforward. However, it turns out that my grandma didn't actually do anything with the trust. She just set it up. Didn't actually put any of her assets into it, what we call funding. And instead, what she had done is like put my mom on bank accounts, added my mom to the title of the houses that they had. And just, kind of that sort of backdoor planning. So she planned with an attorney. She only did, top-notch, first-class stuff. And so I'm sure it was working with an attorney, spending a good chunk of change for that point in time to get this all set up. But then there was no follow-up. And it didn't seem like she had then met with an attorney over time to figure out if her plan was still working, or if it was even working in the first place, doing what she wanted it to do. And for the most part, it still did kind of do what she wanted it to do. I mean, my mom probably missed out on some, tax incentives that, that she could have had by inheriting property as opposed to being added to the title of houses while my grandma was still alive. And so, that was a thing. There was probably ended up with some more taxes that she had to pay upon selling one of those houses. And also we really struggled with identifying where her assets were and what she had and like what was still in effect, right? There were, as we were going through her house and all of her documents and everything, there were a lot of kind of smaller insurance policies, $15,000 accidental death and dismemberment policies. I think we found 4 or 5 of those at least. And I mean, my grandma died at 91. She was probably not going to die in an accident that would allow for those policies to pay out. And so little things like that, just checking in. What do I have? How is it all set up? Do I really need to keep paying on this? Have I actually just overpaid the amount and it's just not worth it anymore? So one of the things that we always emphasize with our clients and just everybody that I talk to is getting a good inventory of what you own. And I don't mean, all of the tchotchkes, the old encyclopedias that I have up there for show. Not all of that. Unless you know that someone particular is interested in that particular item. My family has a pepper bird. It's a bird. It's a pepper mill in the shape of a bird, and it's great. It's fun. My parents love it. We always we kind of comment on him. He's just, I don't know, a little quirky part of our family. And when they were last traveling, I can't remember where they bought it, somewhere in Europe. And when they were last traveling in that same location, they realized that, Pepperbird is the type of thing that families will fight about. And it's true. Little things that are sentimental and just you can see them and remind yourself of your family. Those are the types of things that people end up fighting about. And so they bought 2 more. One for myself, one for my sister, and then one for my sister's daughter, who has always been a huge fan of Pepperbird. And so she gets the original Pepperbird when my parents pass. And it's thoughtful things like that you might think are silly, but that actually help your family immensely and help them get their planning in order. And little things like that, that you want to do. So one of the other questions that I really truly get, oh, I didn't even finish. Let me finish that whole story about my grandma. So she had everything set up, but kind of had backdoored everything, put my mom on all of her accounts and everything. And it kind of passed off without a hitch. Like, we didn't really think anything of it. We're like, okay, good. Didn't open up probate. Didn't need to. There weren't any assets to transfer. So we thought. And, well, my grandma had helped me buy my first house in Colorado. So she co-signed on it with me. As many grandparents are likely to do. But we didn't really think about it. So when she died, I was like, oh no, I think we're joint owners. Like, I'll just have it when she dies. And you really would have thought, like, I was just out of law school at this point in time, you know, you might think that I would just check to be sure or something like that. No, I didn't. I just kind of thought it was done, that we owned it correctly, so I would now be the full owner after she had died. But we did not. We did not. And how did I find that out? Well, 2 years later, when I was trying to sell my house, and they were like, oh, who's this lady who's also on your title? And I was like, oh, it's my grandma. Here's her death certificate. You know, no big deal. And they're like, no, big deal. Actually, you need to go to probate. We need to have a personal representative named because you have to own this house with your grandma's estate now. And then what did that mean? And then meant that after we went to probate to just get this taken care of, half of the proceeds of my house went to my mom. Not exactly what anyone intended when my grandma helped me purchase my house. So fortunately, my mom is an awesome person, and we were able to, we worked through everything. She gave us the money. But in the worst case scenarios, she didn't have to do that. She was the owner of that property. And little things like that cause problems all the time. All the time. So, number one thing that you may consider doing in the new year is your inventorying your assets. Where are your bank accounts? Where would I even look if, you know, if you pass away or you are incapacitated in the hospital, in a coma, otherwise, how is anybody going to know where to locate your stuff, your bank accounts? How are they going to be able to pay bills if they can't access that? So making sure we know where everything is, where to even look. Like right now in Arizona, the State Department of Unclaimed Property has over $2 billion. Billion. With a B. And I would love, you should go check it out yourself, called missingmoney.com, and you search your name, location, and you can find missing money that belonged to you. I actually just recently discovered another, I don't even know how much. Sometimes it tells you the amount or the approximate amount, and sometimes it just says you have this asset to leave. But missingmoney.com, and see if you have anything. I mean, if anyone's listening now and wanted to drop something in the comments to show us that, yeah, I found it. And new stuff shows up over time too. A while back, my husband and I had gone through and claimed a couple things that we found. I think it was like $2.53 was one of the checks I got. So I don't mean to brag, but it's still my money. It's my money that I was missing. And check your family's names. This is how we found this most recent amount. My sister-in-law happened to be looking for some reason. She's like, "Hey, girl, you have an account. You should claim it." So we'll see what that one is. I haven't I sent the claim form off, but haven't received it yet. So it's out there, and it's because people didn't know where to find it. So like, what kinds of things are you thinking about? You're thinking about your bank accounts, and your 401ks, your IRAs, your anything that has a beneficiary on it, all your life insurance, and things like that. Life insurance is particularly important because a lot of times you may have living benefits on that insurance, and if you are sick or otherwise incapacitated, need some care at home, sometimes those benefits can pay for that. And if we don't know what to look at to check those benefits at all, then we may not use them when they could otherwise be available for you. So important things to think about there for sure. And then also thinking about who to nominate, who to name to take care of your assets after your death, to be able to collect anything, go through the probate process if necessary, or just distribute things out of your trust if you've planned with a trust, and who to take care of your kids. If you pass away while your children are young, who are those people who are going to raise your kid in the best way possible that you would want, because I tell you what, if you don't make these decisions, then the court is going to make them for you. The state already has decided. It's called, after you die, it's called intestate, dying without a will. That happens all the time, and so the state has decided what will happen with your stuff. And where that gets complicated is when what the law says isn't necessarily what you would want. So thinking about dying intestate in Arizona, most states are going to be kind of similar like this, if not all of them. We're looking to a surviving spouse, to your kids, and then we go up and over. So parents, siblings, grandparents, aunts and uncles, and further down like that. And those aren't always the people you would want to inherit. For many of us, and many of you out there, family is chosen, and those aren't necessarily the people that the law says will take anything at your death. And so instead, maybe that, your parents who you're very estranged from, you've chosen to go no contact for any reason, but you don't have kids yet, you don't have a spouse, you're not married, something happens to you, we're looking at straight up to your parents, and that to both manage your decisions for you. If you were, let's say, you were in a car accident last week, now you're in the hospital in a coma, someone needs to make decisions for you, and who's that going to be? Your best friend, your partner, your unmarried partner, they may be able to make certain decisions initially, at least, but then your family shows up, and if you're estranged, they have, a little bit more priority than you do, or than your friend does. Are those decisions that they would be making the ones that you would want? Do you want that? Or instead, have you executed a power of attorney, medical power of attorney, financial power of attorney, nominating who you want, who you actually want to take care of those decisions. Especially, if you disagree with, especially coming out of certain religious backgrounds. You totally disagree with the decisions they would make for you because of that belief system, then it's important to be sure that you are nominating other people who share the same beliefs as you to make those medical decisions, to be able to access your finances, and to be able to make all the decisions after your death, right? Be able to distribute money, or to be able to collect that money if those are the people that you want to have that. Also, everyone out there who has gone through a divorce or is contemplating divorce or is in the middle of a divorce right now, until you are actually divorced, it's not going to change the fact that your spouse now is set to inherit. I actually have a client that I was talking to who is in relatively the same situation right now, or not a client yet, but a best friend died, has been separated from his wife for a couple years, but they just haven't gone through the paperwork yet. And so he died. He's not with us any longer. But here, now his ex-wife is, well, not yet ex-wife, is set to inherit everything. Just because he didn't have planning, because he didn't have, he hadn't either yet done the planning at all, or he hadn't had the chance to update it. And I mean, there are significant things, considerations when doing estate planning and a divorce, and that totally depends on like distributing assets, and you definitely don't want to be like moving assets around in the middle of a divorce, but you can definitely get that planning set up so that it's clearer that yes, no, I don't want my soon-to-be ex-husband to inherit everything if I show up dead later. And beneficiary designations are another big one here. Making sure that you touch those on a regular basis. If you are employed and you have benefits, every year you go through open enrollment, double check all of those. Double check who you have listed, that's actually who you want to have listed. I've had another client that I was working with. Her husband passed away, and had just never. It was still his sister who was listed on his life insurance policy. Like, he just didn't like thinking about any of this stuff, and so that money ideally should have been coming to her and her kids to help them live. And he just had never bothered to take the time to update that, even though they had been married for several years and their kids were, I don't know, I want to say the oldest one was maybe 5 or 6 at the time he passed. And, things like that. It's easy to forget. It's easy to push off until later, because who wants to think about dying? Except you are going to. Often I feel like Oprah when I'm talking about death, because I'm like, you're gonna die, and you're gonna die, and you're gonna die, and I'm gonna die. We're all gonna die. And it really is just a matter of thinking about it. It's hard. We don't want to, but here we are. It's going to happen. And you have the opportunity to make it easier for the rest of your family. And even if you have not personally experienced a horrendous and contentious probate case, or families who are fighting and never speak again as a result of this, that's excellent. You are very fortunate. But I think you can agree that you've heard those stories. You've heard that happens, and it does. Oh, Happy New Year, Andrea! I love seeing you on here. And things like that do happen. People fight when you don't set your plan out. So also in thinking of who you want to nominate and how to make those decisions, right? You've got basically 3 categories that you want to be thinking about. You want to be thinking about your healthcare. You want to be thinking about your finances, and you want to be thinking about your kids. And people who would make the best decisions in all of those all of those areas for you are not necessarily the same people. You know, sometimes the person who's going to love your children the most and raise them the best way possible for you aren't necessarily the best with money. And so you don't necessarily want to put them in charge as, you know, personal representative, successor trustee, even durable power of attorney while you're still alive. You don't want to name that person because they're not that great with money, and that's fine because you're naming them to love your kids and keeping that in mind. Same thing with healthcare decisions. Sometimes the person who you think is going to be stellar at managing money and everything, like, you would not want them making your healthcare decisions. Managing money, absolutely, no problem. They are rock stars at that. But there's someone else who should be who would be more compassionate for you and that you would prefer to make your healthcare decisions. So, you know, thinking about it that way and knowing that it doesn't have to be the same person. You can have different people in each of those areas. Again, that was healthcare, finances, and guardianship for your children. Another thing I want to touch on when it comes to guardianship is that we often get caught up. There are, it's hard to think about that. You don't want to think about a world in which you're not there to raise your children into adulthood and see what they become of their lives. But it's important to do that exercise and to really sit down and spend some time thinking about, first of all, how do you want to raise your kids? What is your just parenting philosophy on raising your children? How do you feel about allowances? How do you feel about buying them a car when they're 16? How do you feel about supporting their endeavors as they get older and grow up? Like a lot of different things that how even like things like discipline when you have younger kids, right? How do you feel about discipline and things like that? Who are the important people in your life that you would want your children to maintain contact with? Grandma Sally. It's really important that Grandma Sally still gets to see the girls. People wouldn't necessarily know that, again, unless you write it down. And that is one way to ensure, especially when you would otherwise think to leave your children to your parents, maybe, but they're aging, and they're not. You want to name them because you want to keep them in your kids' lives, but are they really the most appropriate guardian at that point in time? Or instead, can you just make it clear that it's important that your kids maintain a relationship with Grandma Sally, and not make her feel excluded from the situation too? Because otherwise, let's say you pass with no planning. Grandma Sally is afraid that she is never going to see these children again unless she has guardianship of them. So she goes to court and petitions for guardianship. And then your friend, who is who you would otherwise pick to run to run your children, to raise your children. If you were unable to, you hadn't had the conversation with them yet about how they'd just be a perfect match and you would trust them with your life and your children's lives. You haven't had that conversation, so they don't even know. They don't petition the court for guardianship. And maybe your spouse's sister, who is, on paper, she's awesome. She's got a great job. She has a husband and who's stable, another great job there, and they've got 2 kids who are about the same age and everything. And so she petitions the court. But what the court doesn't know is that you would never, you would never put your children in her household. You don't even like leaving your children alone with that family. I know. If you have not said that, nominated somebody else, first of all, and then also in situations where you would absolutely never want that person involved in your children's life, if you haven't put together a document that says that this person is inappropriate to raise my children, I would never want to do that for XYZ reasons, and just have that as kind of insurance against that scenario happening, then what does the court know about that? We've got Grandma Sally, and we have your sister-in-law, and who's the court going to decide who's better for your kids? Honestly, we don't know. So putting everybody in that whole situation, because what you should have done instead is take the time to think about your own mortality. I know we don't want to do that. I know. But taking a little bit of time and planning it out. What do you want to have happen? How do you want your children to be raised? And the best case scenario of that is that you live long, healthy life. We never have to use these documents, but you've had the opportunity to reflect on how your parenting philosophy, and you could change it, because maybe you realize, I actually never thought about what was important to me or how I would like my children to be raised. And you get to update that over time if you want. So I don't know. Let's see. I'm going to flip through and see kind of what questions we had, if anything. Again, Happy New Year, everybody. I appreciate you all being here, and I wish you a very happy New Year. Let's see. Running off all these devices. I'm like, again, I do want to know what you want to work on in this new year. Put it down. There was a response to this earlier. Working on putting everything together. Working on exercising more, getting out there, hiking. I love that. I should go do more hiking. I'm up here in Arizona, just right outside the Superstitions, and I should definitely do that more. All right. Any other questions? If you have any questions, drop them in the comments, guys. Right now, I'll be here just for a little bit longer, scrolling through, make sure I catch everything. Perfect. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, January 1st. If you ever have any comments or questions when it comes to estate or business planning, again, my name's Becky Easton with Easton Law, Estate and Business Planning. I'm licensed here in Arizona and Colorado, and I am here to help you talk about the hard things. Make it a little bit easier to consider what happens when you're not here with us. So I want to thank you guys for joining in or watching on the replay. I appreciate you all. Happy New Year, and stay safe and awesome.